Thanks for listening to Happy Times and Places. That's what this is. It's a positively inclined Doctor Who episode commentary podcast in which I watch a Doctor Who story chosen by a friend of mine and see if I can guess what my special guest's favourite things about each instalment might be.
Hi, my name's Joe Lewallen. I am a Doctor Who fan from rural Northern California, and we're going to talk about Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone.
Welcome, everybody, to this Happy Times and Places for Flesh and Stone, the second part of the Time of Angels story. We do that thing now, don't we, where we call it Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone. The Empty Child, the Doctor Dances, which is not as elegant. You'd have thought we'd have settled on a more elegant way of doing it, wouldn't we? We don't refer to the Ambassadors of Death, episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, or whatever. And I think originally when that sort of thing happened, I think we assumed we'd just call it by its first episode, but we don't. We sort of garble it all together, which is, as I say, I don't think particularly elegant, but it seems to be the way that we've decided to do things, which is okay. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I'm surprised we haven't come up with a better solution. Anyway. Welcome. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I am in the company of Joe Lewallen, whom I have never met, but with whom I have exchanged views and emails and thoughts over the past couple of years, I guess, and I'm always interested in his perspective, and he's always a very game and willing and open and honest participant and correspondent, and came to Doctor Who relatively late in life, and so has taken a totally different journey through the series. And I think at the time of recording still has some classic series stories to go. I feel slightly guilty that Happy Times and Places has, I think, dictated the schedule of some of his watching that he would otherwise have done in a different way. But nonetheless, this was a very early part of Joe's journey into Doctor Who. And I think I did okay last time, didn't I? So I think it's all to play for in the let's see if we can come up with the same. No, maybe I got one. I got 1 out of 3, but that means I could still, in the scorebook, I could still win. I'd have to do pretty well. It's a 43-minute long episode, and we've got to choose 3 things and a bonus. But let's see how we do. So I am going to press play in 3, 2, 1. And so we've got a bit of a previously on. I like a previously on. It's funny because was it this season where they didn't have the next time on the DVD, and I was furious. I found that a really odd. They made a few odd decisions. It's funny, at the time of recording, we are approaching, RTD era 2, and there is commentary and musing and speculation based on the fact that this might be a reset in terms of season or series numbers, and that it won't be, series 14. It will be back to series 1. They actually did try to do this, didn't they, with the beginning of the Moffat era? For a while, they tried to call this, and in some of the marketing and packaging and stuff, and so early on, I don't know if it made it to, but I was definitely aware, because I knew a couple of people involved in the series, and so there was certainly, it was in the air that the plan was that this was going to be series 1. It was a reset, blah de blah, and of course that soon ended up not happening. So I'm interested that I'm reminded of that as we have the same sort of debates going on right now. It does seem a bit odd to kind of say, yeah, all that stuff and love, that never happened, and it doesn't alienate people. People do jump on board with a new Doctor. It people nip in out of curiosity, and they're not going to go, oh, well, hang on. In Doctor Who magazine, they're calling it season 5. I won't be able to watch it then. Do you know what I mean? So, yes, it seems a slightly odd thing to do, and it sounds to me like the imposition of a TV executive or brand person. Those people, many of whom infest the television industry these days and get paid an awful lot to come up with ideas like that. I hope my tone of voice indicates how I feel about them. Anyway, it's a curious cliffhanger, that, isn't it? And that's a beautiful effect. I love all that. I mean, this point of view shooting and the upside down shot and the mucking about with the gravity. All of this is very clever, very nicely shot. It's a good visual. It's slightly eccentric. It's very nicely directed, this, actually. All of this stuff is fantastic. And I was reading about this, that having done, a particular sort of story, a haunted house kind of story with Blink, Moffat was kind of keen to invoke the idea of Aliens, which is a wonderful and effective sequel to a minimalist. Essentially, it's a haunted house, isn't it? The things that go bump on the Nostromo of Alien, which is sort of atmospheric and small number of characters being picked off, etc. And this is military hardware, Marines, as much of an actiony thriller as you can get with a Doctor Who. And that's a good move, because the Angels seem to be, on the surface, I would say, quite a limited monster. You go, well, they're good for a story where you need statues on Earth in the 20th century in a haunted house. And so to put them in a different kind of story, I think it was a bold move, and I think has ensured their longevity. Because I think from a design point of view, they're in danger of, as I say, being anchored in one particular sort of kind of story or métier or whatever. So putting them in this is great, and I love this sort of thing when it's in Doctor Who. I do like it when Doctor Who has it's sort of having your cake and eating it, going, we've got bullets and soldiers and things like that the Doctor sort of disapproves of, but they do make things really exciting. And I remember seeing the gunfire from here in the Next Time trailer was thrilling and very exciting. He's absolutely just the all of this Moffat dialogue is so good, and this is great because this is suggesting there's an element of River's story that is a threat to the Doctor. She has some kind of secret, and I think that sort of stuff threads its through quite nicely. I do lose track a little bit of the River and Doctor stuff, but that's only because I've not watched these episodes millions of times, and I'm sort of slightly less interested in the exact timey-wimey bits of it as I am. I think the emotional journey is very interesting, and I think their relationship is very interesting and very well acted. But the scripting pirouettes interest me less than the sort of individual stories, if you like. This is brilliant. I absolutely love this, that it's the light from the gunfire that gives us the light where we can see, and so you have the movements, those quick flash movements, halted only by the illumination of the muzzle flare. I think that's again, like the reflection in the eye. It's a brilliant idea of going, right, I've got these creatures that do these things. How can I stop them from being one-trick ponies? How can I play with how they're done visually and how we can shoot them and what we can do with them, and etc. 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 And I think that is terrific. I love that sequence. I think that's really exciting, and this is brilliant. It's bought us a bit of time, but they're an inexorable menace. They absolutely will not stop. Anything you put in their way, they overcome, and they keep coming. And the clang of metal, all of that stuff make for ingredients for a tense, exciting, sci-fi, grown-up sort of sci-fi drama, albeit Batman in with a tweed jacket and a bow tie. Oh, and yes, okay. So they go to the. This is where you very cleverly go. And now we can have a sort of foresty set inside a spaceship, which is always sort of lovely. It always reminds me a bit of the Ark. I love that episode title of the Ark, "The Steel Sky," and where they have basically a big zoo on the spaceship. But it's great because it gives us, seeing as this is a story about a spaceship that has crashed on a planet. We start off in the airlock. Oh, and thanks to Michael Herbert, who's one of a member of Patronville, who also sends me factoids on Twitter occasionally. He's an expert on working class history and is writing something on Malcolm Hulk, I think, Michael. Who reminded me, or I hadn't put two and two together, that Simon Dutton in episode 1 is the brother of the writer and actor Julian Dutton, who's done some stuff for Big Finish. And I've only met Julian once. I met him, I was on the Big Finish podcast with him at around Christmas time. And we got on very well, and he was lovely, and we've become Facebook friends. And Julian is, has oh no, because Julian also did University Challenge, the alumni's one year, and I was for many years the warm-up man for University Challenge. But anyway, so yes, I do have a connection to Simon Dutton, is that I kind of know his brother. I think we're Facebook friends. I mean, so, we're practically married. And she does this very well. The way that she does the countdown. And again, that's one of those absolute flourishes of Moffat genius, where he just takes something as simple as a countdown of numbers and sort of throws it in, and it suddenly becomes something so every day as a countdown of numbers. No big effects, no huge moments, no big speech, and just flings it in to the dialogue, and it suddenly becomes something that is puzzling and ultimately scary. And Karen Gillan does it really, really well. I made him say comfy chairs. That's so good, that countdown. That's so clever. He's got so many ideas. I think I mentioned this in episode 1 that somebody I knew at the time was saying, you read that script and you go, any one of these ideas would be enough for a story. Stop having too many good ideas and sticking them all in the same script. It counted down from 10. He's so good, isn't he, Matt Smith? It's hard to... Now that he's a thing of the past, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Because he was new and unknown. I'd seen him in Party Animals, but I hadn't massive... I think we'd only seen the first episode, even though I'd quite liked it. But no, I wasn't really aware of him, I have to be honest. And I thought he was absolutely great straight away. This is great. Again, this is classic Doctor Who. People, the angels are laughing. Everyone talks about Moffat and his, sharp dialogue. He's so good at the scares. He's so good at doing the stuff that is, and the crack in the wall. Look at that. And again, and that was inspired by a crack in his son's wall, wasn't it? Again, so you've got a countdown. So you've got the crack in the wall. And this, of course, becomes the theme for the whole season, really. But I think that's quite a nice, and it's what we have now, isn't it? We have seasons with a sort of linking overall arc, and I think that's a good way of doing it. To reward the regular viewer, but then to seed it into the individual stories and hope it doesn't dominate too much, so that somebody nipping in is alienated. But I think people know when they come in to watch a series, and they might go, oh, well, I might have to look that up, or I might have to catch up on that, and that's what a previously for and all of that is for. I mean, I'm pretty well trained now in watching a previously on and going, oh right, well, so those are the bits they're going to answer this episode or refer to this episode. I mean, you can sort of tell, can't you, by what they choose. That's very, very good. This is a fantastic. It's beautifully lit, and it's a great, as I say, a sort of change of scenery for this adventure. Oh, she's so good, isn't she? And this is actually really scary. Yeah, and that's beautiful. It's beautifully shot, and it's slightly handheld, isn't it? Slightly, the camera is not steady there. That's and that's a deliberate choice. It's got a slight wobble to it. Oh, and he's left his coat, which of course becomes very, very important because he's going to talk to her later, and his jacket will be on. And did you notice that the first time round? A lot of people did. And that's where it gets into the area of sort of timey-wimey, which I'm slightly less sure about. I like a bad wolf where it's basically doesn't really mean all that much, but it's a thing you can sort of go, oh yeah, no, I know that means that's important. I think I'm slightly less enamored of the timey-wimey stuff, just because it makes my head hurt a little bit. And I think it's because I'm Alex Kingston's great. I know there are people that hate this kind of smart aleck repartee and I'm one step ahead of you and I've got a witty clip. I actually really like. I really like it. I think it suits Doctor Who. Doctor Who's always had fun doing witty repartee and sharp dialogue and witty relationships. I do have sympathy with people whose cup of tea it isn't, but it is my cup of tea, I think. Hey, Darren Morfitt, yes. Yeah. And this is, and again, you've got these guys on, that they're on the perimeter, keeping an eye out, and the creatures are coming closer, and she's stuck. This is tense. This is atmospheric, and it's expanding the nature of the threat of the angels, which were a kind of one-trick pony, weren't they? In Blink, I was surprised we saw them again, and now they've become, one of the most. I don't like the way that the word iconic has infested our language and frequently incorrectly, but one of the most memorable, beloved in We Like to Be Scared by Them, and potent threats in the whole of Doctor Who history. And they were dreamt up for a sort of filler episode that the Doctor wasn't in, that has contrived to be one of Doctor Who's greatest episodes of all time. This is good because it does feel like they've got nowhere to go. They're really stuck, and they come up with solutions, and they can't. Yes. So timing. I think there's an element at the moment of. I mean, if I watch a drama now and they show a really exciting scene, and you go, "Oh, this looks a good drama," and then it goes 2 years earlier, and you go, if you don't catch up to the scene that you've just showed me in the first episode, I'm going to be really pissed off. And if you don't catch up with that scene until the end of the series, I mean, even episode 3, and you've lost me, because if you can't start your story at the beginning, if it hasn't got an exciting enough beginning, I don't want to watch a bit from near the end where I kind of know who's still alive and this, that, and the other, in order for you to entice me in and then think you're telling me the story in an interesting way. And I have to say, I sometimes, when I watch a Netflix or a something drama, and it'll end on a brilliant cliffhanger, and then the following episode it will start and go 3 years earlier, and I go, I don't want an episode where you basically get up to the point where I've just left it, and I'm sure you're doing something very clever and seeding something in or explaining something, but do you know what, just tell me a story with a beginning and a middle and an end. And I just think this, because there's quite a lot of it, and I do appreciate the skill that goes into it, and I think you have to have a very clever writer's mind of structure and cause and effect, and the way that character, you can do clever things with character interaction by not watching people's relationship in a linear way. But you know what? I'm a bit more of a meat and potatoes man, I think. Now I think Darren Morfitt was not originally Marco. I think Stephen Walters was originally Marco, and Darren Morfitt was one of the other ones, and the lines were sort of divvied up slightly differently. So a few of them got a bit more to do. I think that's right. In that they had to consolidate some of what these guys did. Now, Mark Monero, he's done loads. I've seen him and good array of things, because he was Steve in EastEnders for years, and he's done a few of those sort of Cockney gangster films. But I've also seen him I think I saw him at the Royal Court in Waris Hussein was seated behind me. And actually, I think it was on the dawn. It was on the dawn of the Matt Smith era. So I remember there was something in the air, because I'd never met Waris Hussein at that point. So I said hello to him and explained and blah 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 blah. And of course it was Doctor Who starting tomorrow. Trevor Cooper was in that as well, and who I've since met. So yes, here the Doctor has his jacket on. So this is a Doctor from a different time, and I'm sure there are people that have all of these threads, but and I'm sure if I was watching this without having to talk at the same time, I'd have a slightly better angle on it. But I'm going to have to react more to what's in the moment than the season-long timey-wimey, tie-uppy stuff, because I'm diving into these episodes randomly rather than as the series structure. So I make no apologies for that, and also that's it, my mind doesn't work as well on. It's not as well engaged in that sort of thing as it is in everything. In rather than going, I like Ian Glenn's lovely stoical performance. And at her pardon, that's right. So, and that's all great dynamic stuff. Is that he's quite a fly in the ointment, isn't he, Octavian? But we like him. He's obviously an honourable man, but he doesn't really like either of our heroes, and that could be annoying, and it isn't, because I think because of the performance, and I think because of the way that he is written as Moffat is not a one-trick pony. He's not all snarks and sarks. I think Octavian is a really well-drawn, straightforward, honourable character. So yeah, Mark Monero was Steve in EastEnders. Darren Morfitt is I keep forgetting the name of his character, who's brilliant in Dog Soldiers. And this is great. She has to. I'd love to tell you Darren Morfitt's coolest line in Dog Soldiers, but you'll have to watch it. It's good fun. She can't see and has to have them talking to her, is again a brilliant storytelling technique that takes a very simple thing. My main character can't see, so has to get her information from these guys who are watching what's going on. So they have to relay it. And of course, they have this brilliant thing of they relay it, and they keep forgetting the one that's disappeared. And she can't do anything about that. That is so economical. That is so imaginative. It's not using anything that you haven't got. It's using an actor. It's using character. It's using interaction. And a bit of light, which is great. But that terrifying concept of when one of them vanishes, they go, "What do you mean, Jim?" And she goes, "You were just talking to Jim." I know they're not called Jim. They're called Marco and Christian and things like that, aren't they? I think. I think. Oh no, and one is called Bob. Not Philip and Crispin. That's right. There was a Bob, wasn't there? So yeah, one of those is a non-speaking actor, isn't he? But yeah, they've gone. And she'll go, "Ooh, Philip and Crispin," and you go, "That's just such a simple. Oh my God, why can't they remember their mates?" And suddenly it becomes, I mean, it's already disconcerting because people are being gobbled up by the light, but that suddenly becomes really disconcerting and weird, and she can't do anything to help them, and they're not doing anything wrong. It's one of those really clever Moffat flourishes of taking seemingly straightforward ingredients and making it dramatic and scary and almost sort of, primal fear about, forgetting or being wiped from existence or whatever. And it's beautifully shot, this. It's absolutely beautifully shot. It is the crack in your wall. Which led well, let's not talk about what it led to. I love all this stuff. I think it's really exciting. I think it's really perplexing. I think it's really scary. No, don't go. What other two? That's really. I think that's so simple. Crispin and Who. I think that's so simple and so clever because something's up, and that the people protecting Amy can't protect her because she is obviously, without being able to see, is aware of something that they are not aware of. So they're obviously going to be a prey to a thing that she is sensitive to, that they, with the best will in the world, can't even conceive because... Who's Pedro? So Pedro's gone. So that's, and there's a horrible inevitability that, these guys are all going to be wiped out and she will be left on her own. And I fear this to me happens a little early because I really like Octavian. And there is quite a lot of the episode left to go. And I do, in my previous watches, I do feel that when the soldiers are gone, it kind of loses something. And I know, of course, it obviously needs to lose them in order for it just to be our main characters left and to increase the danger. But I don't know. In the past, when I've watched it, I've always felt it's slightly lost something when it loses Ian Glenn. But maybe that's just because I enjoy his performance so much, and I think it is an excellent performance. And I think he's a great character. He's very much my kind of Doctor Who character, who somebody sort of stoical and down to earth and straightforward and brave. And funny, but without being wacky. He's funny in his sort of in his intelligence of his discourse in a way. It's not jokey funny. I don't even know if he actually is funny, but I think he is. I think he's got a quick wit and turn of phrase. It's not as I say, he's not a wacky character. And I love this. Don't trust her. Planting the seed, and he's earned us. He's earned us this. He's unimpeachable. Really, he's obviously a man of honor at the point of death. You don't want to know. Oh, and this, again. And I really like this. Very stoical, brave. I love a bit of, this isn't quite self-sacrifice, but I love a brave death. And I love this, I love this exchange. I wish I'd known you better. I think you saw me at my best. You knew me at my best. Or you see, I mean, I know it's just sort of, dramatic boy's own guff, if you like, but it's the sort of stuff that gets me. It's the sort of stuff of drama for me, and Matt Smith's brilliant. And Oh, horrible. Horrible and brilliant. And, the added weight to Octavian's death is, of course, that he's imparted something about the story arc. So it's not just the sacrifice within the story. But I love that scene. I'm thinking of the three things that I've got to choose. I think, I think I have to have the muzzle flash advance. I think I probably have to have Octavian's death. So that's two things. This is, I think the director here, Adam Smith, is it? Really emphasizes her loneliness in the way that this is shot, and Karen Gillan is excellent. But I think, I think her the fact that she is sort of marooned on her own with no protection anymore is really emphasized by the way that was shot, and that was shot in close up, and the music helps as well. What does he tell? I haven't seen this in such a long time that I can't remember how she gets out of it, and she does the sort of the blindness, the uncertainty, and all of this very, very well. It's amazing to think, she was the one who'd been the soothsayer lady, hadn't she, in Fires of Pompeii, and then she does this, and now she's a major Hollywood movie star. Doctor Who is now a passport to Hollywood in a way that I suspect, Jackie Lane and anyone, Ian Marter, Janet Fielding, Mark Strickson, found it, wasn't. And it's lovely that that our program is now taken very seriously within the industry, and attracts top talent. I mean, it always attracted good actors, but it didn't have that wider reach to, and that's the nature of television as well. I mean, television has completely changed, but the fact that it is at the forefront of what is popular culture now, an actor who's been a guest in one episode is known for Doctor Who. I mean, actually, if an old actor who was in Doctor Who once dies, they'll quite often say Doctor Who actor as well. The reporting of actors' careers in the press is usually fairly ineptly done. But if you think about what this is, it's essentially three actors, and an ominous looming threat, but all communicated through the anger of the Doctor, which Matt Smith does very well, and the interaction between him and River Song and Amy. We've got nothing else. This is because you think this story is full of angels, full of soldiers, full of action. Now we've got some angels now, but the past couple of minutes, that's just been basically interaction between those three characters, which I think is very smart and sort of deceptive. Now, I'm not sure I buy this. I think this is perhaps a change of the angel modus operandi. Modus operandi, modus operandi. That I'm not sure I buy. Don't blink, but if you look at them with your eyes shut, they'll think you can see them. This is a bit early to, I think, rewrite the rule book so fundamentally, because there's that brilliant scene in Blink where Larry is looking at the angel, and he looks back, and he looks, and it's got closer to him, and are you telling me that actually all he had to do is close his eyes but keep facing forward, and the angel would have gone, oh well, he's facing me, so he's looking at me? I I alas don't buy that. Which, I mean, do I accept it because it actually facilitates a really memorable and really well done scene? Because this is really good and this is really spooky and scary. And do you go, well, much like, that is great. That is great. And look at the crack and the broken nose of the angel. I think, that is so spooky and scary. Because it facilitates an excellent scene in the same way that, because the rewriting of the Time Lords facilitated the brilliance of the Deadly Assassin, do I go, well, I accept it because it allows for something that is a good piece of storytelling. I am sympathetic with that, because all drama is saying, look, come on, trust me, accept what I'm doing, go with it, and I'll give you a scene, an adventure, a character interaction, a plot twist or something that enriches and invigorates and entertains you. But it has to be brought on a level of plausibility and consistency. And one of the great strengths of Moffat's writing is that he creates worlds that have an inner logic to themselves. And I think Bob's voice is great, because there's an incongruity about it that could almost be comical, because he's got that sort of slightly flat, slightly hapless young man kind of accent, intonation, and voice, which is absolutely deliberate, because it's this weird juxtaposition of that and the ancient, scary female, grey statue alien things, and it's it's a dissonance that and Doctor, I think I've said this before, I may even have said it the last episode, forgive me, there's been a gap between episode 1 and episode 2, and also I have a very throbbing shoulder. I've got an extremely painful frozen shoulder, so my brain is slightly blitzed, but the dissonance is what Doctor Who is all about. Yeti on your loo in Tooting Bec, the statues, the police box on an outer space tundra, or against some exotic background, a blue ramshackle box. This is all great. I love this piece of music. Really dramatic and reminiscent. It's a riff on the I Am the Doctor theme, isn't it, as well? I love the. It's funny because Murray Gold's done four series at this point, but I really love his the repeated refrain of I Am the Doctor in this season. I think it's an absolutely great theme, and here they are back on the beach. I say you're a time traveler now. That explains it. Yeah, and I think I buy that. I totally buy that. That she's it's like she's in the eye of the storm. He's got a bit of stubble there on him, Matt Smith. I never think of the Doctor having stubble much. This seems to me to have been filmed very early in the morning. I think they had an early call for this, and it was bitterly cold. That's just my guess from the sort of what you can see in the air. Very good. Very good. It is. I think I probably missed some of the plot mechanics and subtleties of the story they're talking through, which is always going to be a compromise, I'm afraid, when I do these commentaries, because and partially because these stories are sort of so dense and complicated. I'm not sure I like the you, me handcuffs. I'm not sure I like all the sexy stuff. But that, I'm completely aware that is a matter of taste. But I don't need sexual innuendo between the Doctor and another character. But that's just not to my taste. Whereas I love this. The Octavian said you killed a man, a good man. We know what this is driving at. She does this brilliantly. He's kind of facing her with it, and it's lovely because it's dropping a mystery, and you go, okay, I buy this. It's not dominated this two-parter. We've already heard about the Pandorica, but I casual viewer in inverted commas, I think this is all fine. And Doctor, that's a fairy tale, and this season has the feel of a fairy tale, which I rather like. And that's what I think Murray Gold's music invokes as well. Yeah, it's really bitterly cold. I bet he wishes he was wearing the jacket. I do think Alex Kingston's really good. She invests a lot of class into this, and she's good fun. Yeah, I think she's brilliant casting as River Song. Can't imagine anybody else doing it. And I love Matt Smith's Doctor. He's look at that face. He's got an absolutely brilliant face. What did Moffat call him? A bad drawing of a handsome man or something, which I think is superb. Time can be rewritten. Can it? Okay. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. That's a concept I struggle with, because you go, okay, why haven't you saved every person why didn't you save Phipps from the seeds of death? Why is it that you only, save Rory and Amy or whatever, and except for, when it's their exit story and you can't even just travel to see them by train or whatever. I think a lot of the timey-wimey stuff for me, I think, opens up. It stops it being as watertight, because it kinda cheats. It's not consistent within itself, and I do think a lot of it is a bit self-consciously, look how clever we're being, and you go, well, anyone could be clever. Anyone could be clever playing a game of cards that they've made up. Because I go to you, oh, well, look, I trump you with the ace of spades. And you go, no, you don't trump me this time round, because it's round 3 and we were going backwards. And you can't trump me when I've got the 10 of diamonds. Why? Because that's the rules. Why? Because they're the rules that I've made up, that I'm always going to make up in favour of making sense to the way I want to play the game. And then you as a viewer, I think, are slightly less invested, because you go, well, if the rules work just because they're rules that you've invented, I have no stake in that as a viewer, because I can't anticipate. I can't think, oh yeah, I've cleverly worked that out, because I'm not privy to your thought processes or your rules. That's, I think, my issue with the timey-wimey stuff, even though I do admire the cleverness and how some of the stuff that Moffat seeds in his very first episode has resonance later on. And I don't know if he entirely had that plan. This, on the other hand, I know he's got on record as saying that he kind of regretted that. And again, I can see what he's going for. She's just nearly died. She's just had a really, really terrifying adventure, and he's but I don't think it does anybody any favours. Again, I'm not a great fan of the Doctor kissing anybody. It didn't come to the end of the world in the TV movie, fine. And I know he doesn't kiss her there, but it's still the companion kissing the Doctor. I don't like that at all. I'm sorry, her sort of suggestively lying back on the bed. One, she's going to marry Rory, and I feel a bit sorry for Rory. Two, I don't actually like the way she particularly plays this either. And it's kind, and as I say, he has since said that he regretted that, and what he was aiming for was, it was relief at still being alive, survivor's euphoria kind of thing. But I don't think it does anybody any favours. I don't think it's a great scene. So So I've accentuated the positive by then. I really like this episode, by the way, Vampires of Venice. It's got some cracking lines in it. I love this piece of music. Love this bit. And Arthur Darvill is absolutely terrific. I think Rory is one of my favourite things of this season, which is another reason not wild about that scene between them, because it's a betrayal of him, and he's blameless. It's a great trailer. Why? See, can you imagine if you had this on DVD and it just cut into the closing credits? Anyway. Let's not concentrate on the things I don't like, because this is accentuating the positive, and I really enjoy that episode, but it does contain some of the things I love the most about the Moffat era, but it also contains some of the things that just for me make it fall short, on frustratingly short on occasion, because I think his dialogue is great, I think his characterization is great, I think his casting is great, I think his ability to take apparently simple ingredients and give them the Doctor Who spin is great. But yeah, there are elements that just slightly jar it for me, and mean that I think in that season, the 11th hour, I still think remains the best, probably the best episode of that season. Well, Vincent and the Doctor is a strange anomaly. It's a sort of very unusual episode of Doctor Who. I do like the two-parter, the Pandora. It's a pretty strong later part of the season, but I still think. I think the 11th hour is one of the greatest introductions the show had. Go back and listen to my my Happy Times and Places on that with Nigel Neal biographer Andy Murray, because I think it's a great story and there's plenty to choose from. Anyway, I've got to choose 4 things that I like about that. 3 things plus a bonus thing. So, well, I like the machine gun, the aliens sort of element, of them retreating from the angels, and the machine gun, the lights that gives us the effect that the flashing light bulb had in Blink. So, and the sort of the way that he didn't go, well, I'll stick the angels in another haunted house tale. So, I'll stick those angels in a militaristic sort of story and see if they can work in a slightly different environment, and therefore not limit the range of their storytelling and the sort of styles of story we can tell with those. And but that's around the house's way of going. I like the bit where the gunfire flashes and the creatures move forward. So that. Octavian's death, just because I picked the fact that they were they were clerics before, and that was the one that Joe and I both picked together. And I think I may have included Ian Glenn in that, but if I didn't, this Octavian's death is a way of again acknowledging what I think is a very mature and straightforward and a very good, serious, sensible, dramatic performance of the type that Doctor Who needs to give to ground the characters and the crazy situations around. You sometimes need an actor that's got that innate presence and that commitment to doing it wholeheartedly and unfussily and seriously, and who has that natural gravitas that you can't learn. You've either got it or you haven't, and Ian Glenn has it big time, and I really love that performance, and I think he's a great character. And so but as I say, as I think I might have included him last time, I'll throw him into his own death scene, and so we have all of that. I think we have to have Well, I do like the, the introduction of the idea that River has killed the Doctor. That's dangled as a tantalizing story arc that means that we know River is coming back. That means that these episodes have a promise of things that are ahead, and that that balance of having individual stories with threads that reward the regular viewer. And I think there are lots of threads in the Moffat stuff that works, even though I am timey-wimey averse, or timey-wimey reluctant. So, and partially because I think Alex Kingston is so good, but the way that they introduce that dynamic into this relationship. So we've met River Song first in Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, and she's this character with whom he's got this amazing relationship, and she dies. So then when he brings her back, which I didn't expect, I explained that all in the last episode, you go, okay, well, this is going to be weird. So obviously we're gonna learn the story of how he got to know this woman who obviously thought a hell of a lot of him and then dies. But because we know how that's going to end, it's got to be interesting in some other way. Because otherwise, every time they meet, it's just going to be, well, isn't this sad that she doesn't know that he already knows that she's dead? But adding that thread that, but now it's suggesting that she kills him. That's a thing. I think that's a clever way of giving what, as I say, I had not thought would be a continuous thread throughout the show. I thought the River Song story was done and dusted and told. Suddenly perked my interest up and made me go, okay, it's going to be slightly more interesting than he's occasionally going to meet her and be sad that he knows how she dies. And the fourth thing, the bonus thing, I think it has to be. I think it has to, which I've kind of alluded to it in the machine gunny bit. The taking of the angels and transforming them, I think, which is what this story does, from being a one episode monster into a monster that is more versatile than its initial conception led one to think that they might be. And I thought that was pretty bold and pretty imaginative and pretty clever. And I like the way that they've got, the ones that we have here, have bits of their noses missing and cracks on their face and all of that. I think that's again a nice sort of continuation of the aesthetic and the idea, and one that has a logical element to it. So there we go. Gunflash, Octavian's death, the introduction that River Song has killed the Doctor, and the the continuation of the angel myth and the development of them as a creature within the Doctor Who universe. Honourable mentions go to, I could have mentioned the direction. I did mention the direction as we went on. I think the direction is very, very strong. Murray Gold's music is very, very strong too, and there are themes that I particularly like and think are particularly effective. Let's see what Joe does. So, Flesh and Stone number 1, and where is Joe for this? Because he sent me videos from different parts of he's recorded in different parts of where he lives. So here we are. Where's Joe?
My first favorite thing about Flesh and Stone is the direction by Adam Smith. He also directed The 11th Hour, it's my favorite Doctor Who story. And he does a fantastic job with this story. A couple of highlights are when the soldiers fight the angels going through the hallways. They're very reminiscent of the James Cameron's Aliens, one of my all-time favorite movies. Another thing I liked about the direction is Amy going through the forest, and when the angels turn their heads, a supremely creepy moment, and it was perfectly done by Adam Smith. So I talked a lot about the actors and the characters. This is where the production gets its thumbs up because I thought Adam Smith did a fantastic job. I wish he would do more Doctor Who.
Yeah, well, I think I get a bit of a point for that. One, because I mentioned that Adam Smith, but not as one of my choices. But then, and you know, the Amy's move through the woods, I think, is extremely well done, and the angels turning. And I remember commenting on both of those bits as they happened. But he mentions the muzzle flash alien sequence as part of that. So I think I get a little bit of a point of that for that. I hope. And Joe is there standing in front of a curtain. But he's got a lovely brown jacket on, but also a TARDIS tie. So that's what Joe looks at, because he's gone to the trouble of recording very varied visuals for his presentation, which I am now passing on to you in audio form only. Sorry, Joe. Right, number 2. Which I have to... Oh, it's on the cloud, don't you know? So actually all of this is on the cloud. So here we go. Flesh and Stone number 2.
The second favorite thing about Flesh and Stone is Karen Gillan's Amy Pond. Amy is my first companion, a big part of why I really love 11th Hour, and a fantastic performance in this story as well. Going through the forest with her eyes closed, surrounded by angels, was really scary, and really bought into her fear. But she is a fantastic actress all through her run. Big fan of The Girl Who Waited. That's one of my all-time favorite 11th Doctor stories. Big Karen showcase. And just it's pretty cool watching her become this huge international star with these big blockbuster movies. But I saw her first, and most of us saw her first in Doctor Who.
Joe was there stroking a very lovely dog. He was sitting on a leather sofa and stroking a very lovely dog who seemed to be having a whale of a time. It's funny, when I loved Karen Gillan in that, and I think she's really good in it. And he mentions Girl Who Waited, in which I think she's absolutely extraordinary. But when I think of Amy Pond, I never think of her as being a particular favourite of mine. And I don't know why, because on the evidence of this and the 11th Hour, which I did a while ago, and a few of the Matt Smith era ones that I've either watched bits of recently, she's absolutely excellent, and I think she's beautiful, but I think she's a good actress too. And I think Amy is an interesting character and has agency and gives things to. So why is it that when I sort of think of Amy, I'm a bit sort of like, I'm not a massive fan of Amy. I don't know why. Is that what I was? I mean, and all things are relative. I don't dislike anything really about these periods of Doctor Who, but when I'm so it's all kind of relative. But I wouldn't choose Amy of the Modern Companions in my first thought as a favorite ever, and I don't know why. On the evidence of what I've seen recently, is it because of something that happens later? Is it because they stay for a while? Is it because I wasn't convinced by their ending? I don't know. I'm going to have to be conscious of that when I go through these episodes, and maybe reframe my opinion, because she hasn't put a foot wrong. Well, I mean, she tripped over, but so far. So I wonder why in my subconscious I have a slight antipathy towards Amy Pond, when the character and the actress have done nothing wrong in any of the episodes that I've viewed recently, including those. That is very interesting. And it is also fantastic that she's gone to have this Hollywood career, because at around this time, I think between these seasons, I went to see her to play at... where was it? The Royal Court, the Donmar, somewhere like that. Quite close to her on the stage. Douglas Hodge starred in it in Inadmissible Evidence, which is quite a long and difficult and strange 60s piece of sweaty monologue. Douglas Hodge was excellent, and he played it like he got a frog in the back of his throat. So the whole thing, he spent every every couple of pages you do and you could sort of hear the phlegm in the back of his throat, but it was obviously an acting choice, and it was horrible and uncomfortable, but also brilliant, wonderful piece of brilliant observed acting. And it's this huge, largely a monologue. None of the other characters do that much at all. Some of the characters have no lines whatsoever, and I think Karen Gillan only had about 8. Everyone is sort of on the periphery. So that was very interesting that she did that quite small stage part, because she hadn't actually done much theatre, and was, humble enough to go, well, I'll, work with a brilliant actor, brilliant set of actors, with some other good actors in it, Esther Hall, at an illustrious venue in a, revival of a play that, in the 60s was, quite something, even though it had, I think it has lost a bit of its potency and visibility in the ensuing years. It wasn't the easiest watch, I have to say. It was interesting, but it was largely for the virtuoso performance of Hodge, who's incredible. He's an actor that should have been in Doctor Who by now. But also, she was a friend of a friend, and she was, when she was in Doctor Who, that when I was living in London at the time with my now ex-wife Catherine, and Catherine went out with her friend Sarah and came back, and they'd met up with Karen Gillan. I don't think she was a close friend of this friend, but she'd said, yeah, I'll come out with you. And she, she was in Doctor Who at this time, and they, took photos together, and there they were. So she still, had her feet very, very firmly on the ground, and was, hooking up with people she didn't know hugely well, and meeting new people, including my wife. It's always funny that Doctor Who has always entered my life from funny angles. A social night for my wife, when she was going out with a friend of hers, nothing to do with me, but happens to be meeting the person who's the current star of Doctor Who. Bizarre how Doctor Who is, always is always around the corner for me somehow. Anyway, yes, I need to rethink my relationship with Amy Pond, because I don't know why I have a slight question mark. I think it's, but I do not like that scene at the end, I have to admit. But that's not enough to make a companion plummet in your estimation. So I need to consider that. I need to consider my relationship with Amy Pond, because Karen Gillan is great. Karen Gillan is excellent. Number 3, Flesh and Stone. Joe looks like he's outside a shed. Is there a bit of a tractor thing going on there? Definitely some corrugated iron and some fencing, a bit of barbed wire. What's he going to say to me now for his third thing?
I struggled a bit finding the third favorite thing about Flesh and Stone, simply because I had 2 really good choices. Either the writing of Stephen Moffat or the music of Murray Gold. And based on what I saw in Village of the Angels this weekend, I'm going with Stephen Moffat's writing. He is just such an amazing writer, showrunner. His creations, Weeping Angels, are an enduring Doctor Who monster. In my opinion, the best monster to come out of New Who, and such a good monster that another writer has managed to use them in such a way that made it really, in my opinion, the best episode of the entire Chibnall era. So Stephen Moffat's great dialogue between the characters, between River and the Doctor, River and everybody, and just he's a great showrunner. I love his era to death. The 11th and 12th Doctor, just fantastic. So that's my third thing.
Yeah, no, it's, and I'm in danger sometimes of taking the big things for granted. Would I ever do a Russell T Davies episode and go, well, obviously the best thing about this is Russell T Davies because he is so amazing, and and Moffat too is there are so many strengths that they have, and because they're showrunners, the most successful of their episodes are largely successful because of their vision and their high end skills, and the angels have become, I think are definitely the most successful creation of New Who monster wise. So can't argue with any of that, even though I sort of alluded to a lot of those ingredients and reasonings, I didn't. So no points for me. I've there's no way that I've won this. That's not a surprise. Joe deserves it for the effort that he's put into filming himself in different locations, and he's going to choose his bonus thing now. Let's see if there's a little honour for me to be had. He's standing in front of some lovely green hills and trees, and it looks quite sunny in the open air there. The country life. Good for Joe.
So here's my bonus thing. What else could it be but Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor? What's going to get me to dip my toes and try and tackle the 47-year history of a show like Doctor Who? It's going to be an amazing actor presenting an entirely different kind of hero than anything I've seen before. It definitely, Matt Smith is great. I love the whole Matt Smith era. There's not a story in that era that I'm not willing to sit down and watch anytime, anywhere. I think he's great. I think he's a great doctor, and I think the show was just fantastic during that time period. Love his companions, and this was his first episode he filmed. He just knocked it out of the park. Love the Doctor.
Yeah, I should have chosen that really, especially as Joe reminded me there. That's this is his first block, isn't it? And he's already Doctor Who, and he's so good. He's so good at the emotional stuff. He's so good at the funny stuff. He's so good at the tricky sci-fi stuff, and he has a lightness of touch. He has an elan. He has an emotional core. He's got an age beyond his years, all of that stuff that I think is really important for a good doctor, and he owns it from day one. And he's, he is reminiscent a little bit of Troughton, even though physically and facially totally different, and that's always a good thing in my book, to be reminiscent of Troughton. And I love the reverence that he has for the past show. I love the fact that he chose the bow tie based on watching Tomb of the Cybermen and liking what Troughton got up to, and going against that sort of sexy young piratey thing that they wanted for him, and actually being more so, even though he didn't really know the show, picking up that actually its DNA is perhaps more bookish than swashbuckling. I like that. And what I particularly love about that though is this was sort of Joe's entry point, and he's gone back and looked at Classic Who and the whole of Classic Who, and is enough of a fan to sign up to my old rubbish and engage with it so enthusiastically. And he's sort of my sort of age, Joe, and so he comes from a completely different place, a completely different perspective. Even that's aside from our cultural differences and influences and all that sort of thing. But the fact that he comes to the show from the other end of it, he's introduced via New Who and then goes back to Old Who, and yet we still have so many things that we sort of like and can discuss and all that. I love that. And in fact, that's a testament to timey-wimey, isn't it? That's a very Moffat-y way of him discovering the show. He started the show at one end. I started at not quite the other end, but another end of it at different time points. But those time points then cross over, but we experience it in a different order. Joe and I have experienced Doctor Who almost in a way that River Song and the Doctor have experienced each other. We've had the same experiences, but in a totally different order. And because we've had them in a totally different order, perhaps our reactions to those things will be different. And so actually, maybe there is something in this timey-wimey thing after all. Ha ha. And Joe also has... Oh, no, so Shameless Plug is first. Shameless Plug is 10. He's numbered them. And this isn't timey-wimey. This is linear. So number 9 was the bonus. Number 10 is the Shameless Plug. So I'll play that for you now.
Shameless Plug. When I first started filming these videos almost 3 weeks ago, I didn't really have a plan for a plug. I don't have a blog. I don't have a podcast. I don't have a YouTube. I barely have a Twitter. You don't have to follow me on Twitter. But something has come up, something that's very important. My cousin Annie, the daughter of my cousin Gary, is a special education teacher, and she has been battling brain cancer for over 5 years. They've gotten some of the cancer out, but some of it still remains, and they're fighting to save her life. Her remarkable father, Gary Wilson, my cousin, has raised a lot of money with the GoFundMe, organized not that long ago. but every little bit helps, and this is the biggest audience I can come up with to spread the word. And if you could donate to Annie's cause, that would be most wonderful. I really appreciate that, and Toby for this opportunity to spread the word.
So if you could do that, that would be wonderful, and I will do a reminder and give you directions of how to get to the all-important donations page for that. Now, and send best wishes too, from me, and I hope from all of you. Right, outro from Joe.
Outro. So, Joe Lewallen, Doctor Who fan from Northern California. Thank you, Toby, for giving me this opportunity to talk about the 11th Doctor, one of my very, very favorite stories, Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone, my favorite era of the show. It's just a great story, one of the very best. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you, Toby, for giving me this opportunity. I ask you to support Annie in her GoFundMe if you can, and support Toby with his Patreon, because he brings a lot of joy, at least to my little world, and hopefully to yours too. Thank you all, and God bless.
Oh, thanks, Joe. And yes, if you can support Annie, that would be lovely. Again, I will send you to the page in the outro or in the post credits. Well, Joe brings me a lot of joy. As does, I didn't really know Doctor Who fans, certainly not growing up, certainly not till I was a teenager, really. And it's still always been largely a solitary pleasure, and I don't mind that. I'm actually quite good in my own company. But I do like the fact that this show has enabled me to sort of reach around the world and connect with lives, that I could not possibly have had any form of encounter with, really, were it not for being united, even though we've come to it in different ways and different experiences and all of that. It's just that's all it is, the program itself, not the program discovered at the same point or necessarily the same things about the program, but just this program, Doctor Who, this sprawling program that people like for different reasons, that has had many incarnations, that has had many different sets of atmospheres and creative regimes that have given it different aesthetics and tones and styles of storytelling, all that sort of thing. But there's something about it that means that two people who've never met can enjoy each other's company and each other's experiences of the show, and and there are people like that across the world, but also in the UK, and people that I will meet at some point, people that I may never meet at some point. But in this modern world, communication is doable and different, isn't it? But I'm really enjoying this aspect of it. I think it was exacerbated by lockdown as well, where we were all locked in and had to sort of think about reaching out and realise that actually our reach could be anywhere we wanted it to be. But I'm really thrilled by that, and the whole Patreon was set up during lockdown as part of that whole process, and it was something I was very reluctant to do. I don't like busking and putting my cap down, but also I am a freelance creative, and you have to monetize your speech. Essentially, it's what and your broadcasting and your endeavor and your creativity, and I hope there's some of at least bits of those in this. But actually, the most important thing about it is that, well, one, I'm extremely flabbergasted anybody has done it, and it's been a pleasant surprise that people who have done it have stuck with it and seem to find something worthwhile out of it. But it's to turn it away from myself slightly, it's that it's opened me up to exchanges with people of the quality of Joe, which I think is extraordinary and fascinating to me, that such interesting and fascinating and nice and with a benevolent worldview and a joy of creativity, could somehow connect with me and the stuff that I do. I find that flattering and beneficial, and wonderful, and just another great thing about the brilliance of Doctor Who. And Joe also has number 12, a silly bit at the end. He says, "What is this?" Oh, he's outside some trees that have what some look like some sort of neon lights wrapped around them.
And truly, finally, I just want to thank my long-suffering children who filmed all of these. My son TJ.
Hello.
And my daughter Gracie.
Hi.
And they did all this. And remember, whatever holds an image of an angel becomes an angel. Don't blink. Blink and you're dead.
So scary.
That was brilliant, and there was an angel figure there. One of the ones with the oversized heads, not the character options ones, but those slightly sort of caricatured ones. What was pointed to the camera. So I now have the image of an angel, and I'm now going to get something in my eye, and something terrible is going to happen to me. And it was nice to see TJ and Grace's hand only waving there. But isn't that great that the kids got involved as well, which again is another example of why Doctor Who is so wonderful, is that it's connected Joe with his kids. His poor kids have been co-opted into making those 12 videos that he did with such enthusiasm and creativity to be part of this project, and and the effort involved, I do appreciate it, especially as I'm doing this currently, as an audio presentation, and there's very much mothballs on the video element of these podcasts, just because I'm writing a book about Quatermass and trying to keep a roof above my head in the world of comedy and entertainment, and doing all the other things that I do, as well as living with and being a partial carer for a disabled partner, and just the fugitive tempest that seems to mean that I don't have as much time to do things as I did when we were locked down and couldn't go anywhere. So apologies to Joe that the videos currently don't have a home, but I hope enough of his character and input comes across in the audio medium. But he did put great effort into that, and as I say, co-opted his children, who seem to have done it with great enthusiasm. And of course, that's where the hope lies, the next generation, if they're still loving telly that is an imaginative and gripping and scary. And of course, they're kids from the United States who, if they're enthusiastic and inspired, and perhaps have an element of that helps, that bonds them with their dad. I certainly found Doctor Who was a useful tool with my kids, and it's great to have a thing that I love that my kids sort of enjoyed when I watched it with them, and blah blah blah. What a wonderful, excellent extra element that is to what the show brings to the table, is that it crosses generations and it helps generations to bond. And I think again it's particularly impressive if it reaches across the pond and does that as well. It provides the same there's the same sort of familial glue that I associate with cold winter nights in Shropshire and boiled eggs and soldiers and all of that sort of thing. But it didn't actually bond me with my family and parents. It was more a sole island of respite, whereas there it's a dad and his kids doing a fun thing. Well, I hope it was fun, TJ and Gracie, and bunging it over to me over here in the UK. I love the whole story of that, and again, that is something that has been inspired by silly old Doctor Who. So yes, I completely lost that. Although I have to say, I think I touched upon all of the things that Joe chose, and it's a reminder that sometimes one mustn't overcomplicate this. And if the actor playing the Doctor, particularly if it's their first kind of shot at it, is really good, choose them. If the writing is really good, choose the writer, even if it's the showrunner. If the direction is good, choose the director, and don't just do that if it's the classic series where you pride yourself that you can spot different directors, stylings. I think you do have to look a bit harder in the new series to pick out good bits of direction, because the new series is a bit more uniform. There is a sort of house style. Television series now have a house style in the way that actually in the old days a director could come and stamp their mark on it. They could shoot the particular series they descended upon in a way that differed from the people who shot it last time. I think there was much more leeway actually to stamp your mark as a director in the way that television used to be made than now. But Adam Smith did an amazing job there, and I think the great assets that he brought are much more subtly deployed. You don't director's input on Doctor Who today it's much less about grand statements, but more about very subtle and clever bits of editing and pacing, and all within the established style and the way that stuff has to be shot with a certain consistency these days to make a program recognizable, etc., etc. So so I do regret not choosing the summer. I very much went for sort of scenes and moments, didn't I? Whereas I tend to go for people. So so I always tend not to go for people when the guest goes for people. You can't win. No, I can't win. But as this is a Stephen Moffat story, what I can do is I can travel back in time and go back to the beginning and choose all the things that I now know Joe's going to choose. Oh, but would that be cheating? Yes, it would. And I did touch upon that. No, so instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as a result of my relief at getting through this alive, I'm going to inadvisedly get off with somebody I've just caught a lift with, and end the episode on a slightly controversial note. Anyway, kissy kissy kiss. Good. Thanks to Joe mostly though, and I will direct you to Annie's donation page. What a great cause that could hopefully come out of you listening to this. Thanks for listening to this. Thanks to Joe, and I will see you the next time we set sail for some happy times and places. Thanks very much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Hadoke. My special guest this time around is Joe Lewallen, who can be found on Twitter at JokerBC67. I'm grateful to him and to the patrons who make this podcast possible, and they include Peter Adamson, Andrew and Lisa, Catherine Armitage, John Arnold, Kevin Ashelford, Luke Adkins, James Bell, David Bickley, Will Brooks, Rick Byatt, Gary Byrne, Robin Bland, Robbie C., Alex Kafajoglu, Paul Carnahan, Paul Carrington, Andy Case, John Curley, Mark Dakin, Rob Dawson, John Elledge, Mark Findlay-Smith, Joe Ford, Gary Gillett, Paul Goodrich, James Gould, Lisa C. Greco, David Green, Fraser Gregory, Paul Gregory, Dave Hoskin, Richie Howarth, Robert Jewell, Andrew Jordan, Christopher Joyce and Just Jerkovic. The music is by Dave Gates, the artwork by Dylan Patterson. I'm not sure how to do links to GoFundMe that are concise, but it's called Help Annie with Medical Costs on GoFundMe, and it was established by Gary Wilson, who is Annie's dad. I will try to share a link in the literature blurb for these podcasts, but you can always send me a DM on @Hadoke Podcasts, and I can send you the link. It just seems to be harder to impart vocally. Because I'm incompetent. But anyway, that's Joe's very good course, Help Annie with Medical Costs. If you could do that, we'd all be grateful. If you would like your name read out at the end of some of these podcasts and other bonuses, you can subscribe to become a patron at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. For as little as £3 a month, you get bonus releases, you get advance releases, you get material that is exclusive to patrons, and you get other bits and bobs from my archive. As I say, you're early with all of the podcasts with Happy Times and Places. It's running at over 6 months at the moment, I think, and then a month or so for Indefinable Magic and Too Much Information. And there's far too much information, which is only there for patrons. And you get a 10% discount on the £3 a month, and indeed on any tier. The tiers ascend, but most stuff is available at the lowest tier, and you get 10% off if you sign up for a year in one go. And yes, as I say, the name being read out on the credits is one of the things. There's also pictures of my dog and other bits and bobs. It's quite fun. Lots of nice feedback and community stuff there as well, away from the big noise of hoodum on the internet, which I think sometimes can drown out all reason and sometimes a bit draining. I hope it's not very draining at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. If you don't want to commit to a monthly thing, you can go to kofi.com/Toby Hadoke. That's another way of financially supporting these ad-free podcasts, but I know that money is tight at the moment, so you can go to iTunes or Spotify or Podbean and leave these 5 stars and a good review, and that helps too and costs nothing. Oh, do you know what? I'd love to leave some very erudite post-credits contribution. Yeah, because they normally are. I mean, they're normally the height of erudition. They're really worth waiting for rather than off-the-cuff meanderings because I don't know when to stop. But anyway, I do know when to stop today because I'm broadcasting with a frozen shoulder, and I don't think I've ever been in quite this much agony. It really hurts. That'll teach me to go to the gym. So I'm going to leave it there. But I'm really grateful to Joe for contributing, and I didn't pick up as much as I would like to have done because I forgot on his comment that as well as the military, Doctor Who is often hard on religion, and I think that's worth an investigation and a podcast. And I'm interested in people who have a religion, who watch Doctor Who, and how you might rationalise your love for the show and your deeply held beliefs, which I think is very interesting. I'm fortunate that I'm not a religious person, although I do respect people who subsume their own ego and personality and desires for a greater being and a greater good and a moral code and all of that. I like to think I have a moral code, but it comes from me rather than on high or teachings or anything else. But I actually think religion. Yes, I mean, it's well rehearsed that religion, when used badly, can be a terrible thing. But also, I think we sometimes, in our desire to do that, because it's very easy to knock institutions, and it makes us feel good when we do. But also, I've seen religion do great good and provide great comfort. And I also think in our narcissistic times, there is actually said for something that says, actually, you're not the most important thing. And, there's, looking out for others and community. And as I say, a higher power that might just make you not think about your own needs and desires. So, although I'm not religious myself, I'm no Dawkins. I understand where it comes from, and I sometimes have great respect for people who devote their life to religious goodness in a way that is, I would say, less egocentric than the way I perhaps live my life. But anyway, I'm aware that Doctor Who, which is very good at satirising big institutions, and certainly a programme that, adheres very much to the scientific. I mean, sometimes it adheres to scientific nonsense, but you know what I mean? It is very much where science beats superstition, Miss Hawthorne, and Doctor Who would often, I think of religion as being superstitious. But I'm interested in the idea that people who have a deeply held belief, rationalise that with Doctor Who and Doctor Who's attitude, and there's something to, I think, examine about how religion has found its way into Doctor Who over the years and how the programme deals with that. So I'm sort of thinking out loud, but I think that's very interesting, and I'm grateful to Joe for bringing that up, and I wish I'd pondered on that a little bit more, but as I say, and it actually hasn't made me any pithier than usual. But if it's any consolation, whilst I've just given you that piece of verbal diarrhea, my shoulder was in absolute agony. So, it's the Lord's punishment. Ha ha! There you see, there is a God. Ha ha ha! He's a vengeful one. He's kicking the heck out of my shoulder. Thanks for listening. Hope you're all well.